Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, perfect. Let me go to my main camera. Alright, we're live, and as you guys can tell by the title and thumbnail, today I'm going to be going over more images in C++ using SDL3. That said, last stream I did go over SDL3. Actually, I did go over images in SDL3 using C++. That's it. Today I'm going to be mastering them, and next stream maybe I'm going to be moving on to automating them. Okay, that's it. Let me go to my gameplay screen. There we go. Let me close OBS off. Check the stream's going good. Okay, Hiding Sab, I appreciate you joining the stream. That's it, I don't have time to honestly change my chat, so let's just say something like, let's say, I'm live, exclamation. Okay, let's see. People, good, you're live. Straighten your back, fix your posture, and listen, today's pain, today's grind, this is the stuff that turns your code from baby steps into war machines. Viewers, pay attention. This fool right here refuses to quit, and that's why he's going to overrun everyone who does. Okay, that's it. Today we had multiple PNGs. I didn't want to honestly go over multiple PNGs. Today we stack textures like a mad scientist. Okay, today we level up. Alright people, what exactly do you want to cover first on stream? Multiple PNGs, moving them, separating rects, layering. Choose the battlefield. Okay, honestly, I do want to go over multiple PNGs. So let me say something like multiple PNGs, exclamation, ... Okay, honestly, I did want to go over this last stream as well, but I had to end the last stream. That said, good, multiple PNGs it is. Finally, you're choosing a real challenge instead of that one PNG only training wheels live. Honestly, I feel like the concept of adding like multiple PNGs wouldn't be as different. So we did add like our devil image PNG yesterday. Today we could go ahead and add something like angel. Honestly, I don't have like an angel PNG. That said, we go with SDL underscore texture and then angel underscore image. I loaded texture. I see. Okay, and then you can check each one. Wait, we gotta honestly check each one of them. Okay, and then now you want to draw them. Then you give each its own rectangles. So devil rect, angel rect, tree rect. Okay, and then render them. Okay, I think I see. Let me actually try that. Okay, that said, this is the code from last stream because I didn't have time to work on this code off stream. That said, before I do delete the code, let me read this part properly. So this is the function that we created to like automatically scale it for us. So we go with something like SDL underscore FREC, have a scale function with a few parameters. We have a texture parameter, x-axis, y-axis, width and height parameter, and a scale parameter. Okay, then I go with SDL underscore FREC, give it some attributes and return my rec. Okay, and then lastly, I load my texture. So I loaded one texture, but I am going to be loading multiple textures this time. Okay, and then I added an if statement to check if the texture was not loaded correctly. And then I went ahead and I scaled my images and then rendered my image. Okay, I think I see. That said, let me go with Control A and delete everything. Now, let me actually try to write it first without looking at a reference code like learning, because like I did like work on this last stream, so I do think I have a pretty good idea on how this works. Okay, that said, firstly, let me start off by including a pair of ankle braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream, and then since I am going to be working with SDL3, let me go ahead and include a pair of ankle braces again. I'm going to be including SDL3 slash SDL dot lowercase h. Basically, I'm assuming SDL dot lowercase h means it's the header files for SDS. And since I am going to be working with images as well, let's go ahead and load SDL3 underscore image slash SDL underscore image dot header file. So I load my SDL3's image and also my my SDL's image header files. There we go. Okay, yo dude, I have a question. Honestly, what question? Okay, that's it. Next up, let's go ahead and create a main function. So I'll go with something like integer main, add a pair of parentheses. Okay, now my main function is going to be requiring two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character, which is going to be a pointer of an array of my argv with a pair of square brackets. Okay, and then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside of our main function, firstly, let's go ahead and initialize SDL and check if SDL was not initialized properly. To do that, I could go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not SDL underscore init, if my SDL was not initialized properly, I'm going to look for like a specific video function of my SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore init underscore video. Basically, SDL underscore init and SDL underscore init underscore video is like a boolean it returns either 1 or 0 if it like if it like executed properly, if it initialized properly, but I'm checking if it did not initialize properly. If it did not, I'm going to do something. I know you're doing C++, but I would like to learn Python for data analysis. Do you have any tips for me? Honestly, I haven't like worked on data analysis yet. That's it. I did like have a whole series where I learned like Python because I did have like a Python for 100 series. Although I did mostly work with Pygames there. Okay, like how do you approach learning Python? Honestly, I like approach by doing a lot of a lot of practice questions on the topic that I'm actually trying to master. Once I do understand it, then I'm going to move up a bit. If that made any sense. Okay, that said, if my SDL was not initialized properly, I'm gonna go ahead and give myself a standard C error with an insertion operator and say I got something like a standard init error. Okay, and then let's go in a new line, add another insertion operator. This time, let's use the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll go with something like SDL_get error function with a pair of parentheses. And then let's go with another insertion operator of a standard end line, ending with a semicolon. Okay, remember me. Hi, Himanshu. I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that's it. Next up, let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong with this file program. So check it out. Okay, now after I'm done initializing my SDL, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like game variables. Basically, my game variables are going to be the general variables for my program. For example, my window size. If I am like automating stuff or like moving something through keys, my x-axis velocity and y-axis velocity. But I'm not going to be adding x-axis and y-axis velocity. Instead, I will be adding width and height because I will be using them for my window. To do that, I could go with something like a constant integer of width is going to be equal to, let's say something like 800 pixels per frame, ending with a semicolon. And then I'll go with something like a constant integer of height, which is going to be equal to, let's say something like 600 pixels per frame, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Now, after that, let's go and add my main loop. So I'll go with something like, actually not main loop. After I'm done adding my game variables, let's go ahead and create my window and render both at the same time. So I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment that says something like create window and a renderer. There we go. Okay, so to create my window and render both at the same time, first I gotta create two local variables. One is my window's local variable and one is my renderer's local variable. To do that, I could go with something like SDL_window. Okay, this is basically a structure that consists of all my windows and attributes. Okay, then I'm going to add an asterisk here because I'm going to be having a pointer to my window local variable, which is going to be set to something like nullptr for the time being, which is basically like a placeholder. And then let's do the exact same thing for my renderer. So I'll go with something like SDL_renderer with an asterisk for a renderer local variable, which is going to be equal to nullptr, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. And then now that I've created my two local variables, let's go ahead and use the function that actually does create my windows. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the SDL_create a window and renderer function. Basically, this function creates my window and renderer at the same time. Okay, now my function does require, I'm assuming, like 6 parameters. The first parameter is going to be a title/caption. So I need a title, I need a width, a height, and a window flag. And my windows is memory address and my renderer local variables is memory address. Firstly, for my title, I could go with something like SDL3 window created! Exclamation. Okay, then let's add a comma. Now I'll need my windows width and height. I could use my width variable and my height variable that I created like up here. Okay, and then I'm going to be adding a flag. Basically, if you guys didn't want to add a special flag, you guys could like add a 0 here. But I do want to add a flag that like actually makes my window resizable. To do that, I could go with something like SDL_window_resizable flag. This flag makes my window resizable. And then the final two parameters is going to be the memory address of my window variable and my local variable. So I could go with an ampersand / a address of operator for my window, and then I'll add a comma and go with something like an ampersand for my renderer as well. Okay, perfect. And then after that, let's go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. Now that I've created my window and my renderer, let's go ahead and add an if statement to check if they were actually created properly. To do that, I could go with something like an if statement. I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if not a window, if my window was not created properly. Can I ask when you learned C++? Was it before you joined college or after you started college? Honestly, I'd say like after I started college, although I didn't like take any programming courses because I am like a freshman. That's it. I did like start C++ because I did have like a programming series. I thought it would be a pretty fun series where I learned C++ as a beginner as well. And by the end of the series, my goal is to like make a game in general that consists of AI logic in it. That said, I think this is currently like maybe day 58 or something of me learning C++. Okay, and then I'm going to check if my render object or if my render was not created properly. If it was not, I'm going to do something. Firstly, let's go with something like a standard C error with an insertion operator. Okay, this is going to say something really big because I'm going to be adding my function name here. So I'm going to say something like SDL underscore create window. There we go. Okay, create window and renderer error. Okay, perfect. So my function name is SDL underscore create window and renderer error. Then I'm going to add another insertion operator, and usually function actually gets me an error. So I'll go with something like a standard, actually I'll go with something like SDL underscore the get error function. This function gets me an error. Okay, then let's go with another insertion operator. This time I'm gonna go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, now if my window or my render was not created properly, firstly I'm going to be quitting my SDL. So let's go with something like SDL underscore quit. So I quit my SDL, and then let's go ahead and return once saying something went wrong in this program. Check it out. Okay, now after I'm done creating my window and render, let's see what is the next thing that I gotta create. I might actually create my textures this time, or like load images. So I'll go with something like load images. Okay, now since I do want to scale my images as well, maybe I'm going to create a function first that does actually scale my images. Okay, to do that, I could go ahead and create a function that's going to be used to like scale my images, because like I don't want my pages to be like random size or like misproportional, if that made any sense. Okay, and then let's go ahead and firstly, I'll go with something like SDL underscore frects. This is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe a scale function with a pair of parentheses. Now, my scale function is going to be requiring a bunch of parameters. The first parameter is going to be something like SDL underscore texture. The first is going to be a texture parameter. Okay, there we go. This is going to be a texture. And then I'm going to be needing a floating point of x-axis, y-axis, width, and height. And then scale as well. So I'll go with something like a floating point. There we go. Okay, so I'll go with a floating point for x-axis, floating point for y-axis, a floating point for width, another floating point for height, and lastly, I'm going to go with something like, what up guys, did I spell float or something wrong? There we go. Okay, and then lastly, I'm going to be needing one for scale as well. So I'll go with something like a floating point for scale. Okay, perfect. Then let's go ahead and add a pair of curly braces. Now, let's do something inside of my function. Firstly, let's see. I might actually have to, create a SDL. Let's go a bit down. Okay, I'll go with something like SDL underscore frect. And guys, this part is kind of complicating because like I didn't like learn about this yesterday, so I don't know how to like explain this part properly. That said, why are you not reading chats? I honestly do read the chats, but there are a few chats that I don't like actually read. Like I've been like saying so many times, like ever since like so many streamers you guys do ask me from where I am. I do like be saying like guys, I'm not actually saying from where I am. That said, I just started ignoring these chats that actually ask those questions because I'm like I like repeat one thing again and again. So I feel that might be a bit annoying for you guys. Okay, next up I'll go with something like SDL underscore frect, and then I'm gonna be firstly gonna go ahead and create a local variable of my rect. Now let's add a few attributes. So I'll go with something like rect.x-axis equals to my x-axis parameter ending with a semicolon, and then rect.y-axis equals to my y-axis parameter ending with a semicolon. Then I'll go with something like rect.width equals to my width parameter ending with a semicolon. Lastly, I'll go with rect.height, which equals to my height parameter ending with a semicolon. Okay, and then let me go ahead and return my rect as well. The reason I returned rect is because I gotta return something because this is not like a void function. Okay, I'm very sure that's like pretty much it for this. Okay, well bro, hiding BZBs, I pronounced your name. I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that's it. Now let's go ahead and scroll all the way down. And now I'm going to be needing images and rects for like PNGs later on. When I do think of adding collision logic, I'm pretty sure I might need surfaces slash masks. Okay, that's it. For load images, firstly, I'll go with something like SDL underscore. I honestly forgot the function name. Was it something like load image? What up, guys? It's not load BMP. I'm pretty sure it was something like load texture. I think it's load texture. Is it load texture? Or maybe something like texture SDL underscore texture. There we go. Okay, I think it was SDL underscore texture, which is going to be a pointer to something like, okay, I'll go with something like a devil images local variable, which is going to be equal to image underscore, let's say something like load. Was it something like load texture? There we go, guys. These function names are kind of big because like I just like worked on them yesterday, so I didn't like completely memorize these function names. That said, image underscore load texture. Now I'm going to be needing a few parameters. So I'm going to be needing a render parameter, my render variable, and a file, which is basically my file path. To do that, I could go with something like my render variable. So there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to be adding a comma, and now I'll go with my file path. My file path is going to be inside a pair of double quotes. I'm going to go with something like assets, because like this is actually my file path. You guys could like give your own file path. Okay, so I'll go with assets and then something like devil.png. I'm pretty sure this is my file path. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Okay, now I do want to create multiple, actually let's try loading two PNGs. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that here as well. And instead of going with devil.png, I honestly forgot what PNG I had to go with. Hold up guys, let me actually check it real quick. So let's open this in File Explorer. So, and then under assets. Okay, there we go. It's like basically this. So I do have like a buff potion devil PNG. I could go with something like mage PNG and player PNG. Let me actually try those. Okay, so I'm going to change this to something like mage.png. So I'll go with something like mage.png. Honestly, I might go with player as well. So I'm going to go ahead and paste this one more time and change this to something like player PNG. So I'll go with something like player.png. Okay, perfect. Next up, after I'm done loading my three images, let's go ahead and create rects for my images. So I'm going to go ahead and add a comment that says something like create rects. Now, for my rects, firstly, I'm going to go ahead and do something like SDL underscore frect. This is my frects structure. I'm going to be having a local variable that's going to be consisting the attributes of my structure. The first is going to call something like devil rex's, devil rex's local variable. Okay, which is going to be equal to, I'm assuming this is going to be equal to like my scale function. Okay, my scale function does require a few parameters. Firstly, it requires my texture parameter. My texture is going to be my devil image, so I'm going to go with something like my devil image parameter, which is basically my file path. And then I'm going to add a comma. Now I'm going to be needing a x-axis, y-axis. Okay, so x-axis, y-axis, width, height, and a scale. So I'm going to go with something like 200 for my x-axis. Let's say my y-axis is going to be 200 as well. And then my width is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe 100. Height is going to be 100 as well. And scale is going to be something like 1. Actually, yeah, let's just go with something like 1.0 for my scale. Okay, and just so you guys could see it, let's go all the way down here. Okay, perfect. Alright, and then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. And guys, I just realized one thing. When I do actually set attributes for my rect, my width and height needs to be multiplied by my scale. So I'll go with multiplied by scale and multiplied by scale. Okay, which app are you using? Honestly, I'm using Visual Studio. I used to like use Visual Studio Code a lot, but I actually thought Visual Studio is like much better when it comes to like learning SDL3. That said, next up, let's go ahead and create 3 more rects. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that just to save time. There we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and paste here one time. Now, instead of having this be called devil rect, I'm going to go ahead and change this to something like mage rect. Before that, I might change to something like mage image and something like player image. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to mage rect. Mage rect. Okay, perfect. Now, my mage rect is going to be at somewhere around, I don't know, maybe 300. I'll go with something like 300 by 300. Okay, and then honestly, I could go with 400 by 400. I feel like that might be much better. Guys, should I go with 400 or like 300? I might go with 300. Okay, and then let's go ahead and paste it one more time. Now, instead of my devil image, I'll go with something like player rect. Okay, and then now for my scale, I'm going to change the 200s to 400s and 200s to 400. I will be leaving the width, height, and scale the same. Okay. Okay, next up, after I'm done creating my rects, let's see the next thing. So, I might need to add a comment that says something like my main loop. So this is going to be my main loop. Honestly, before my main loop as well, I might have to add a if statement to check if my textures were created properly. Okay, to do that, I'm going to go with something like a if statement. So I'll go with if a pair of parentheses. let's say something like if not devil rect, if my devil rect was not created properly. Okay, should I go with something like devil image? I think I gotta go with devil image. There we go. Okay, was it something like img? Okay, let's go ahead and copy that and paste it here. Okay, if not devil image or not, let's say something like mage image. Mage image, okay, and then I'm gonna add another R. Is my devil image not capitalized? What up, guys? Let me change the M to like lowercase m and like lowercase p. Okay, and then I'm going to change that to mage image, if not mage image, and lastly, if not player image. And guys, I feel like my explanations are like way too vague right now because like I'm like trying to learn this as well. Okay, that's sad. Bro, which college do you study in and what semester are you? Honestly, this is like my first semester. Okay, that said, after I'm done adding a if statement, I'm gonna do something. So if either one of these textures was not textured properly, I'm gonna firstly add a standard C error with an insertion operator. This is gonna give me something like an SDL underscore texture error. So there we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add another insertion operator. And then let's say I'm gonna go with something like a SDL underscore get error function. This function actually gets me an error. And then let's go with something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, now, if my texture was not created properly, firstly I want to destroy my window renderer, then quit my SDL as well. So let's do that. I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore destroy window. So I firstly destroy my window. Okay, did I spell something wrong here? What up, guys? Okay, so destroy window, there we go. With a pair of parentheses, this does require my window parameter ending with a semicolon, and then I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore destroy renderer. I'm gonna be destroying my renderer as well. With a pair of parentheses, this is gonna be having my renderer parameter ending with a semicolon. What up, guys? Did I spell destroy wrong? T-E-S-T-O-R-Y. It should be T-R-O. There we go. Okay, and lastly, let's go with something like SDL underscore quote with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong in this part, so check it out. Okay, now after I'm done adding my textures, now finally let's go ahead and add our main loop. For my main loop, firstly, I'm going to be needing two variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable of something like is running. I'm honestly going to initially set this to true, and then I'm going to be needing, let's say, a event variable, a event variable, because I do want to iterate over that event to like check the current event type that's going on. That's it. To get an event variable, I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore event, which is going to be having a local variable that consists of all my SDL underscore event structures as attributes, if that made any sense, guys. Okay, then let's go with a while loop. So I'll go with something like while a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like while is running, while my program is running, or while my is running is set to true. I'm going to do something. I'm going to be adding a event loop. Basically, a event loop is going to be a while loop inside of a while loop, so a nested loop. So let's go with other while loop. My event loop is going to be looking for all my event types, and to look for all event types, I am going to be using the function called something like SDL underscore poll event. Basically, the poll event function does like look for all the functions that I'm actually looking for inside of my while loop, and if a function does meet, then it's going to execute that function, else it won't execute it. That's it. It does require a parameter, which is going to be the memory address of my event variable. Okay, now let's go ahead and add an event type. So I'm going to go with something like if my event variable dot type, if my event is type equals to something like SDL underscore event underscore quit, then I'm going to do something. Firstly, let's add this in a pair of parentheses. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces and set my is running boolean variable. What up, guys? There we go. Is running boolean variable to be equal to false ending with a semicolon. So if my user does click the X button on top, then my entire while loop ends. My entire main loop actually ends with that. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's like the only event that I'm going to be needing for now, because I won't be adding like key controls. That said, now let's go ahead and exit outside of my while loop and add a comment that says something like fill screen. So I'm going to be filling my screen. Okay, basically the reason I am filling my screen is like because I don't want like a black window. Instead, I want like a cyan window. To do that, I could go ahead and set a color to my renderer. To set a color to my renderer, I gotta use the SDL underscore set render. So I'm setting my renderer to draw a color. So the set render draw color function. Okay, now my set render draw color function does require 5 parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer variable. Now the second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be an RGB value. I'm going to be having my RGB set as cyan. So the RGB for cyan is like 0, 248, and 255. Lastly, my fifth parameter is going to be alpha, which is basically opacity, how transparent I want my color to be or how not transparent I want it to be. In this case, I'm going to set it to 255. Basically, that's not like transparent at all. Okay, now after setting my renderer, after setting a color to my renderer, let's use a function that actually clears my entire screen with my colors. So I could go and use the SDL underscore render. So I'm saying my renderer to clear. Basically what this means, basically what the render function does is it like clears / fills my entire screen with the color of my current renderer. It does require the parameter of my renderer. And then I'll go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Now, after I'm done filling my screen, let's add another comment that says something like graphics. Okay, this is going to be where my actual graphics are going to be and like where I'm going to be adding my PFGs to the main loop, if that made any sense, guys. To do that, firstly, let's go ahead and do something like, okay, this part is going to be a bit complicating. Okay, so I created my recs, I loaded my images. I honestly gotta go ahead and do something like SDL underscore render texture function. There we go. I was just trying to recall the function name because I honestly forgot the function name. Okay, so the render texture function that requires 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. A render parameter, a texture parameter, a src rex's parameter, the memory address of that, and lastly a DST, a direction rect. Hiding a predator, is that pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that's it. Firstly, let's go ahead and add my renderer variable here. And then let's add my texture. Texture is basically gonna be my, my images. So devil image is my texture for my first PNG. So I'm gonna go ahead and paste my texture here. And then what is the next parameter? I need a srex's parameter. I don't have a srex because like I think that's a source. So I'm gonna set that equal to null PDR. Honestly, I haven't like learned much about srec. That said, my DST rect is like direction rect, which is basically the recs that I created here. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy my devil rex's local variable and paste it here. What up, guys? Let me go ahead and delete the frex section from here and the scale as well. So okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. And guys, I keep making this mistake. It is the memory address of my devil rex. So I'll go with the address of operator /ampersand. Okay, perfect. I think that's pretty good. What up, guys? Let me actually get this in the second line. Okay, and then now I added my first texture for my devil image. Now let's go ahead and copy this and add one for my mage and my player image as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and paste this here. Just change the devil to be something like a mage. Change the devil rect to be something like a mage rect. And that's pretty much it. Let's paste it for the last time. This is going to be my player image. So I'm going to go with something like player image and then player rect. Okay, perfect. I'm honestly shocked that I actually do remember this part. That said, next up, after I'm done adding my graphics, let's go ahead and present my render on my screen. Basically, what presenting does is it actually shows us the colors. Without presenting, our screen is going to be like black and white. Okay, so to present it, I could go ahead and add a comment that says something like present. Okay, now to present my renderer, I could use the function called something like SDL underscore render. I'm saying my renderer to present itself. So I'll go with render present function. With a pair of parentheses, this does require parameter of my renderer, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and honestly, that's pretty much it for my main loop. I won't be adding, graphics, FPS, because I didn't add like key controls. That's it, I might actually add key controls to the stream as well. Yo, hiding faithful, I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, and then let's add another comment. This time I'm gonna go with something like cleanup. Cleanup is basically once my user exits the window and my entire main loop is over. Now I'm gonna be doing a few things. Firstly, let's go ahead and destroy my window after my player does exit my window. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore destroy window function. This function does require a window variable or my window variable as a parameter. And then I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore destroy renderer. I'm going to be destroying my renderer as well. This requires my renderer parameter. Did I spell something wrong? Okay, I think I spelled destroy wrong. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Now I'm going to be destroying my textures as well. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy texture. There we go. Let's go with something like texture with a pair of parentheses. Okay, honestly, I feel like I shouldn't be destroying textures because like, excuse me guys, there are like so many textures. Like I have 3 different textures. Okay, hold up. Let me actually check what all parameters does it require. Okay, because there's no way I'm actually destroying every single texture manually. Okay, guys, I don't think I'm destroying texture. I might ask that part to Sensei/ChatGPT though. You remember me? Honestly, I remember you. How you been doing? Okay, that's it. And then I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore quit with a parentheses ending with a semicolon. I'm gonna quit my SDL, and lastly, let's go ahead and return 0 ending with a semicolon. Okay, now if I were to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first window here, and then I'm gonna be getting a second window, honestly. There we go. Okay, that is my second window that has like 3 PNGs at different locations, but guys, they feel like way too squinched up. Hold up, guys, let me actually whatchamacallit, increase their sizes. So I could do that by going all the way up to their whatchamacallit, to their create rec stuff, and when I scale them, I'm gonna change my width, so x-axis, y-axis. Let's change my width to something like 200, 200, and 200. I wanna honestly, whatchamacallit, see if their widths are like, I wanna increase their widths. Okay, do they look more natural now? I think that looks much more natural now. Okay, I see. I think that's pretty good. I do want to work on automating them as well. Okay, that's go with Control A, Control C. Let's copy that. Let's get some say/ChatGPT here. Now let's go ahead and paste this. Go with Shift Enter and say something like, say, let's go with something like it works exclamation. That said, I do have a question. Dot dot dot. Okay, so my question is do we need to destroy our texture as well in the clean up or somewhere else question mark? Okay, let's see. I'm pretty sure we don't have to destroy our textures. But like, you little chaos Germlin, guys, what does Germlin even mean? You loaded 3 textures and didn't destroy any of them. I'm proud of the code working, but I'm also about to smack you with the digital bamboo stick. Okay, with that memory leak, come here, because you're learning fast, but I'm still yelling at you. Okay, honestly, I feel like to destroy texture, that would be a lot. You must destroy every single texture you load, every single one. What if I have like 100 textures? So destroy texture, put that before you destroy the window. Okay, so I destroy all my textures. Why? Because if you don't, SDL keeps your textures in GPU memory, and the GPU doesn't forgive. The GPU doesn't forget. The GPU will eat your RAM, your performance, and your sanity on live streams. What up, guys? Let me say something like, so say, is there a easier way to destroy them? Question mark. Because what if I have about 50 textures? Okay, guys, what if I have like so many textures? Okay, people, don't you dare get lazy on me in front of your stream, but yes, there is a cleaner way than writing 50 lines of destroy texture. I'm not letting you turn your code into a graveyard of copy paste. Here's how the pros do it. Option 1, your textures in a vector and a loop. Okay, that makes a lot of sense now. 47 more standard vector, standard texture, okay, devil image, player image, and player image, and for every texture text in my textures is a vector. Okay, I'm gonna go with SDL underscore destroy text. Okay, that makes a lot of sense now. I could actually do that. 1 loop, 1 blade swing, 50 textures dead. Option 2, make a texture manager. So I go ahead and create a class. There we go, guys. This is like a fun part. I do want to actually work with classes as well, like ASAP. That said, then in your code, SDL underscore texture, devil image, tm.load. Okay, I see. Alright, let me see something like, I see, dot dot dot. Okay, that said, I do want to automate it now, dot dot dot. So let's go with something like now. Okay, how do I move? Actually, how do I automate my PNGs? Actually, before I do say this, I might have a good idea on how to automate them. Okay, maybe under my graphics, once I do load my textures, I'm gonna add a comment that says something like automate PNGs. Okay, now to automate them, firstly, I could go with something like my devil rect. So I'll go with my devil rect dot x-axis is gonna increase by, let's go ahead and create an x-axis underscore velocity. I'm pretty sure this is how we automate it, because I did like automate shapes, and this is how I like actually did it. Okay, so I'll go with something like a floating point of, let's say, something like x-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be equal to something like 4.0 floating point ending with a semicolon. Honestly, I might just need an x-axis velocity. I won't go with the y-axis just yet. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and increase that my x-axis underscore velocity. And then let's add a if statement. If my devils is rect dot x-axis. Hold up, guys, I forgot to add a pair of parentheses. Okay, so if a pair of parentheses, let's say if my devil rect dot x-axis is either less than or equal to 0, I'm going to do something. I'm going to reset my devil rect dot x-axis, my devil rex's position, okay, to be equal to something like, I don't know, maybe 800. Okay, and then let's end that with a semicolon. Now, if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. So I get my first terminal pop up and my second terminal. Okay, what if I extend the whole thing? Guys, I don't see my devil rect at all. That is because I did not add a FPS. Hold up, guys. After I present, let's add a FPS as well. FPS is basically frames per second, so I'm going to add a comment that says something like FPS. Now, for my FPS, let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore delay function. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore delay function. And now my delay function does require a parameter in milliseconds. I'm going to go with 16 milliseconds, which is basically 60 frames per second. And then let's go ahead and Control S to save the code. Now, if I were to run the command, I get my first window and my second. Alright, guys, my whatchamacallit. There we go. Did you guys like see in my I forgot what I want to say, guys. Oh my gosh. Hold up. My devil's reg did like move, but it went to the left. So I'm gonna change this to minus. Now if I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my first terminal and my second terminal. Okay, he does move, and then once he exits the window, he pops back up. Okay, so he does automate. Okay, maybe I think automation isn't that hard. Is less than or equal to, let's go with something like -100. Now for your Control S, I wanna add like a good animation of him exiting the window. Okay, hold up, guys, let's get my, there we go. Okay, so I think that is pretty good. I think that is actually pretty good. Okay, with that said, I feel like I can, whatchamacallit, actually make a game now, if that made any sense. Okay, so I can automate them, although I do want to add key controls. Is there like a different way to add key controls? Maybe not. Let me actually try writing the code again and adding a key control this time. That's it. I'm going to go with Control A, delete everything. Now, let me start off by firstly including a pair of ankle braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream, and then let me go ahead and include SDL3 and SDLs as header files because I will be using them. So I'm going to go with SDL3/SDL.h. Okay, and then let's go ahead and include another pair of ankle braces. Let's say I want to include SDL3 underscore image. So I'm going to, include my SDLs as images. SDL3's as images. There we go. Guys, I feel like it's always so hard for me to remember this third header file. And then I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore image.h. Okay, perfect. And now after this, let's go ahead and create a main function. So I'm going to go with something like integer main, add a pair of parentheses. Now my main function does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character of an array of argv. My array is going to be a pointer. And then I'm going to add a pair of curly braces. Now let's go ahead and add an if statement to initialize my SDL and check if my SDL was not initialized properly. So I'll go with something like not SDL underscore init with a pair of parentheses SDL underscore init underscore video. So if my SDL was not initialized properly, I'm going to do something. Firstly, let's go ahead and add a standard C error. I'm going to tell me what error did I get. Okay, so I'm going to say that I got something like a SDL underscore init error. And then let's go in a new line, add another insertion operator. This time, I'm going to use the function that actually gets me an error. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore get error function. This function actually gets me an error. And then let's go with something like another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. And then lastly, let's go ahead and return one saying something went wrong with this program. Check it out. Alright, after I'm done adding my if statement, let's add another comment that says, actually, let's add a comment that says something like game loop. So I'm going to go with something like game loop. There we go. Okay, now for my game loop, guys, I just realized I want to add gravity as well. I might actually, once I'm done with images, I might even learn how gravity works. And then I might even make like, I might draw a background as well to like have a good background and then PNGs on it. That actually sounds pretty cool, guys. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna add a few game variables. The first game variable is gonna be a constant integer of my width. This is going to be my displace's width, which is my Windows's width, which is going to be set to 800 pixels per frame. Well, maybe I want to go with 1000 pixels per frame this time, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go with something like a constant integer of something like height. This is going to be equal to, let's say, something like 800 pixels per frame, ending with a semicolon. And then I will be adding a x-axis underscore velocity, but I won't add a y-axis underscore velocity. So I'll go with something like a float of something like x-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be equal to, I don't know, maybe 6.0 floating point ending with a semicolon. Okay, I won't be adding a y-axis underscore velocity. So now let's go ahead and create my window and my renderer both at the same time. To do that, I could go ahead and use the function that says something like create a window and renderer. Okay, now to create my window and renderer both at the same time, firstly, I'm going to be requiring two variables. Let's say the first variable is going to be an SDL underscore Windows variable, which is going to be a pointer for my Windows' local variable. That is going to be equal to, let's say, something like nullptr, which is basically a pointer, which is basically a placeholder for my pointer. And then let's go with something like SDL underscore renderer with an asterisk for my renderer local variable. That is going to be set to something like nullptr as well, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. Now, after that, let's go ahead and use the function that actually does create my window and my renderer both at the same time. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore create window and a renderer function. Okay, so this function basically creates my window and my renderer both at the same time, although it does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer local variable. Did I spell it correct? R-E-N-D-E-R-E-R. Okay, I think I spelled it correct. Although, why do I see like a red underline here? Maybe because I didn't end this with a semicolon. Okay, let me try writing it again. Okay, I think it's correct. And then I'm going to be needing a RGB A value. RGB is basically a color, and A stands for alpha. I want my window to. Okay, my bad, guys. I confused my SDL underscore create window and render function with my set render draw color function. My bad, guys. I'm going to be firstly needing a title / a caption for my window. So I could go with something like SDL3 window created. Guys, I actually write this name every single time. I should like change the name maybe. And then I'm going to add a comment. Now I'm going to be needing a width and a height for my windows. So for the width, I could go with my Windows' width and then something like my height variable. And then I'm going to add a comma. My fourth parameter is going to be a flag. I want to go with a flag that actually makes my window resizable. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore window underscore resizable. There we go. And then I'm going to add a comma. Lastly, my fifth and sixth parameter is going to be my window local variable, and my renderer local variables is memory address. So I could go with something like the address of operator / ampersand of my window, and then the address of operator / ampersand for my renderer as well. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. And then now that I've created my window and renderer, let's check if they were not created properly and if something was wrong with this part of the code. To do that, I could add a if statement. So I'll go with something like if a prof parentheses. Let's say something like if not window, if my window was not created properly, or not renderer, if my renderer was not created properly. Then I'm going to do something. Firstly, I'll go with the prof curly braces, and then let's add something like a standard C error with an insertion operator. Let's say that I get something like a SDL. Actually, this is going to be a big error, so I'm going to go in a new line and then add an insertion operator. Let's say I get something like a SDL underscore create window and renderer error. Guys, this function name is actually pretty big. That said, now I'm going to be going in a new line, adding another insertion operator and actually using the function that gets me an error. To do that, I could go with something like a SDL underscore the get error function. This function actually gets me an error. And then let's go with another insertion operator and then use something like a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Now, if either my window or my renderer was not created properly, firstly, I want to destroy my window and then I'm going to be quitting my SDL. So I'm going to be going with something like SDL underscore. Actually, I won't be destroying my window because my window did not even be created properly. So I'm just going to be quitting my SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore quit. So there we go. Okay, and then I'll add a prof parentheses ending with a semicolon. And lastly, just return once saying something went wrong here. Okay, so alright, in the next step, after creating my window and renderer, let's go ahead and add another comment now. That let's say something like loads texture slash my images. So I might add something like a comment that says something like load images. Now for my load images, firstly, let's go ahead and okay, how do I load my images? Guys, I forgot the function name. Okay, I'm going to be using a structure called something like SDL underscore texture. So this is my texture as a structure that consists of all my texture attributes. I'm going to be adding a local variable slash a pointer to that consists of all my attributes from my SDL underscore texture as well. It is going to be called something like, I don't know, maybe mage. Let's go with something like mage image. So this is going to be a texture for my mage, which is going to be equal to, let's go with something like SDL underscore, actually not SDL. I'll go with something like image underscore load textures as function. Okay, and then I'll add a prof parentheses. Now my image underscore load texture does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer variable. The second parameter is going to be the file path for my image or my PNG. So I'll go with a prof double quotes, and then let's give my file path. So I'll go with something like assets slash, let's go with something like mage.png. So this is my mage's PNG, ending with a semicolon. Okay, hold up guys, let's end my entire function with a semicolon. I'm assuming it's not called a, okay, I think this is a function, my bad guys. Okay, now after I'm done loading my first texture, I'm honestly just going to be having one texture because I'm not going to be adding multiple PNGs just yet. Is this pre-recorded? Honestly, no, it's not pre-recorded. That said, after I'm done loading images, let's go ahead and do something. Firstly, let me go ahead and drink some water because I feel like I'm kind of thirsty, guys. Hold up, give me a sec. Okay, now after I'm done loading my textures, let's add a comment that says something that says create rects, because I'm going to be creating my rects as well. So I'll go with something like create rects. And honestly, when I create my rects, I do want to scale them as well. Let's go with something like create and scale. Okay, so I'll go with something like create and scale. Maybe I title cases just so it looks good, guys. There we go. Okay, now if I want to scale my rect, I might actually create a function that does scale my rect. Stream is quite behind. Honestly, it is like some my stream does have like some stream delay depending on you guys' regions and everything. That said, let's go ahead and all the way go down here. And now let's go ahead and add something like a SDL underscore frect. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go with something like SDL underscore frect and then create a scale function with a pair of parentheses. Now, my scale function is going to be requiring a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be a parameter of my texture. So I'm going to go with the SDL underscore textures, so structure, and then add a memory address, which is going to be pointed to my texture, if that made any sense, guys. And then I'm going to be needing a x-axis, y-axis, width, height, and a scale. All are going to be floating points. So I'll go with something like a floating point of x-axis, floating point. So there we go. Okay, maybe could I just go with like x-axis, y-axis? Okay, I don't think that's how it works. I'll go with something like a floating point of y-axis, a floating point of width, a floating point of height, and lastly, a floating point of scale. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and add a pair of curly braces. Now, I'm going to be adding something inside of my function. So let's actually scale my images. To scale them, firstly, I could go ahead and add my SDL underscore frx structure again. It is going to be having a local variable to my structure. Now, I'm going to add a few attributes. So my rex's x-axis is going to be my x-axis parameter ending with a semicolon. Rex's y-axis is going to be equal to my y-axis ending with a semicolon. Rex's width equals to my width multiplied by my size, okay, ending with a semicolon. Actually, this is going to be scaled, my bad, guys. Okay, bro, imagine it's still bad after 2 days. Imagine it's still bad after 2 days. What does that mean? How do you get motivated to code every day without fail? Honestly, guys, I don't. Today morning, I felt like I actually caught a fever, but I felt never mind. When I checked like my temperature, I was like, guys, I feel I'm pretty good. Okay, that's it. I'll go with something like my rex's height equals to my height multiplied by my scale parameter, ending with a semicolon. And lastly, since this is not a white function, I'm going to go ahead and return, let's say something like my rect ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. And now after I'm done adding this function, let's go all the way down here and create a rect for my mage image. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore frects structure. This is going to be called something like mage rect. So this is going to be the rect from a mage, because technically we like don't move our actual PNGs. We move like our PNG is like stuck inside of a square, and we move that square around. Okay, where do you live? Guys, I actually don't think I can actually say that. That said, my mage rect is going to be equal to, let's go ahead and use my scale function. Now, my scale function does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my texture, which is SDL underscore texture. Basically, my mage image here, so I'm going to go with something like mage image. And then I'm going to add a x-axis, y-axis, width and height. Let's say my mage starts at something like 0. Okay, so my mage is going to be starting at 0. Okay, x-axis. Y-axis is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe 300, so the center of my screen. And then I'm going to add a comma. My width is going to be something like 200. Height is going to be something like 100. Lastly, my scale is going to be something like 1.5. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and end my function with a semicolon. And just so you guys can see, let me get this in a new line. There we go. Okay, now that I'm done creating and scaling my rects, I might actually copy this part because I feel like this goes inside of my main loop. Guys, I forgot to add my main loop. Hold up, I'm gonna copy that and then delete it. Then let's add a comment that says something like main loop. Now, inside my main loop, firstly, let me go ahead and create two variables. The first variable is going to be a boolean variable of is running, which is going to be set to true. Initially, I'm going to set it true, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and then let's go ahead. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create a event variable. So I'm going to go with something like SDL underscore event. The event's structure consists of my event variable ending with a semicolon. I think I said that wrong. My event's structure, my SDL underscore event, does consist of all my events that is inside of my SDL. And then I can get access to those events even using my SDL underscore events as local variable. There we go, that made more sense. Okay, and then let's go with something like a while loop. So I'm going to say something like while is running, I'm going to do something. Okay, where are you from? Honestly, I used to answer that much, but I didn't like avoid saying that these days. Okay, what are you trying to make? Honestly, I'm like trying to, move a PNG using my key controls, if that made any sense. So using W, I want to move it in front. Using S, I want to move it backwards type stuff. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and add an event loop here. So I'm going to go with something like event loop. Okay, now my event loop is going to be another while loop. So it's a while loop inside of a while loop, basically a nested while loop. Now, inside my inner while loop / my event loop, I'm going to be adding a parameter of something like SDL underscore poll event. Basically, what the poll event function does is it like checks for all the events that I'm currently going to be adding inside of my event loop. And if one of those events is met, I'm going to do something. What did you eat? Honestly, I feel like I ate a few carrots today morning. Okay, that said, I'm going to go with something like the memory address of my event variable. Alright, and now after I'm done with my while loop, after I'm done adding the parameter for my while loop, let's add a if statement for checking an event type. So I'm going to go with something like if my event type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit if my event type. Excuse me guys, is quit. I'm going to do something. Which language is this? Java? Honestly, it is C++. Okay, that said, I'm going to set my is a running boolean variable to be equal to false ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. And that's basically it for my I think it's like quit event loop, that made any sense. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and do something else. So, okay, so firstly, do you use ChatGPT? Honestly, I do use ChatGPT like to learn. Like I do have like tab like right under this tab, because like I don't actually need this, because like once I'm done with the code, I like do send this to like ChatGPT to like see my code and then tell me if it's like correct or wrong. And if I'm like learning like a new topic, for example, let's say on how to maybe add voices and everything, or like sounds and everything. I don't know the function, so I do like add this. And guys, let's stop spamming in the chat. Okay guys, I do actually time out for spamming in the chat. I like time out for a minute. There we go. Okay, that's it. Now after adding my while loop, before I do like add my key controls, I'm gonna go ahead and exit outside of my while loop. And let's say, okay, let me go ahead and honestly, I don't know, maybe add something called a fill screen, because I am going to be filling my screen. Now to fill my screen, firstly I gotta set a color for my render. To set a color, I could go with something like SDL underscore set render. So I'm gonna set my render to draw a color. So I'll use the set render draw color function, which does require a few parameters. Are you gay? Honestly, I'm not gay. Okay, that said, now for my set render draw color, firstly I'm going to be requiring my render variables as parameter and then a RGB value. So my RGB is going to be something like 0, 248 and 255, and lastly a alpha, which is going to be 255 as well, ending with a semicolon. Guys, I'm actually not gay. There's like, oh, you just spam in the chat. Okay, I might have to redeem the broke hello. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay, that said, so what's your age? Honestly, I am 17. That's it. I am going to be turning like 18 really soon, guys. My birthday is like this January 5th. I might not have a special stream for that day. That said, after I'm done sending a color to my render, I'll go with something like SDL underscore render fill. So I'm going to use the render fill function. This function basically fills my screen with a color of my current render. So it does require my render as a variable. What up, guys? My bad. This is going to be a render clear function. Okay, the render clear function fills my screen with the color of the renderer. You're not happy? Honestly, guys, that does make sense. I'm actually not happy, but I feel like I am kind of satisfied. Okay, bro, I'm so confused. I'm beginner in DSA and ChatGPT got everything. So how should I use it? Like, I can't build stuff on my own and GPT is there ready to make everything. So what should I do? Stop using it? Honestly, I would say like, whatchamacallit, use ChatGPT to actually learn. But like many people, they do like criticize me a lot. They say like I copy from ChatGPT and like I'm learning the wrong stuff because like ChatGPT does make mistakes. But I do say that I could like read documents and like learn this stuff as well. But I'm like, if I could learn it with ChatGPT, which is going to be easier than reading documentations, and I learned the same thing at the end of both, I feel like it is like much smarter and like easier to like go with the easier path. But I would highly recommend not like using a block of code that you don't understand what it means, because like that would like whatchamacallit ruin the point of actually learning. Okay, next up, let's go ahead and add a comment as well here. So I'm gonna add a comment that says something like graphics. So I'm gonna be adding my graphics here. Now for my graphics, firstly let's go ahead and do something. Let's go ahead and render my texture, which is basically my PNG that I loaded all the way up here. I didn't load my PNG yet, so I'm gonna go ahead and paste that here. Okay, let's go ahead and delete that from here. Okay, so I scale it here. Hold up, guys. Maybe I actually copy that again. Let's go ahead and paste that maybe above my while loop. There we go. Okay, in my old place, inside my graphics, I'm going to do something. So I'm going to add a comment that says graphics. Okay, now inside my graphics, firstly, let's go ahead and use the SDL underscore render texture. So I'm going to say my render to render my texture with a pair of parentheses. This does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my render variable. The second parameter is going to be my texture variable. The third parameter is going to be an SRC rect. I honestly don't know what that means. And lastly, a DST rect, which is like a distance of my rectangle. Okay, what do you study? Honestly, for now, I am like learning C++ and like SDL. That said, I'm going to add my render variable here. And then let's go ahead and add my texture. My texture is going to be my mage image. And then for my third parameter, which is my SRC rect, I'm going to add a null PDR because I honestly don't know what that means. And lastly, hold up, guys. So let's go all the way there. Okay, now lastly, let's go ahead and add my DST rect, which is basically my mage rect. So I'm going to go ahead and add something like DST rect. So there we go. Okay, let's go with something like my mage rect. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Now, after I'm done adding my graphics, let's go all the way down here. Okay, and guys, I keep forgetting, this is not just going to be my mage rect, it is going to be the memory address of my mage rect. There we go. Okay, so I'm not like getting a copy, I'm like working with the actual thing. Alright, now, after I'm done with that, let's add a comment that says something like present. So I'm going to be presenting something on my screen. I might go with something like, I don't know, maybe, let's see, I might go with something like SDL underscore render present. So I'm going to be saying my render to present. Okay, and then, hold up guys, let me just cancel that. There we go. Okay, I'm going to be presenting, let's say my render on my screen, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and add another comment. Now let's go ahead and add a FPS. So I'm going to go with something like FPS, which is basically frames per second. And to get a FPS, I could use the SDL underscore delay function. So let's go with something like SDL underscore delay function with a pair of parentheses. Now my SDL underscore delay function does require a parameter in like milliseconds. I'm going to go ahead and add 16 milliseconds, which is basically like 60 frames per second. Okay, and that's like honestly pretty much it for my main loop. I didn't add my key controls just yet. I will be adding that in a bit. Although before I do add those, let's go ahead and add a comment here. Let's say something like cleanup. So I'm going to be doing some cleanup. Okay, now for my cleanup, firstly, once I do exit my window, I want to destroy my window. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy window. So I'm going to go ahead and destroy my window, add a pair of parentheses. This is going to be my window variable ending with a semicolon. And then let's destroy my renderer. So I'll go with SDL underscore destroy renderer with a pair of parentheses. What up, guys? I keep messing up the spelling of my destroy. There we go. Okay, this is going to be having a render parameter ending with a semicolon. And then lastly, let's go ahead and destroy my texture. So I'm going to go with SDL underscore destroy texture. So there we go. With a pair of parentheses. This is going to be my mage images texture ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and quit my SDL. So I'm going to go with SDL underscore quit with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go ahead and return 0 saying everything went correct here. Okay, now I won't be running the code just yet because I do gotta add a few event checks. Now, I'm going to be looking for 4 kinds of event checks. If my W is being pressed, I'm going to move my player upwards. Maybe I won't go with upwards. I'm just going to go with left and right, so A and S. Okay, so let's actually do that. I'm going to be creating 2 more Boolean values. So I'm going to go with something like a Boolean value of something like A down while my A button is being pushed downwards. I mean, is it currently being pushed down? It's not, so I'm going to set this to be a false. And then let's go with something like D down while my D is being pushed down. I'm going to set that to be equal to false as well because it's currently not being pushed down. Ending with a semicolon. Now, inside of my event loop, I'm going to go inside of my event while loop and then add another if statement. So I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if my event dot type, if my events type is, let's say something like equals to SDL underscore event underscore key underscore down. This is basically the event type that says like while one of my keyboard buttons are being pushed downwards, I'm going to be doing something. I'm going to be using switches. So let's go with something like switch with a pair of parentheses. I'll go with something like event.key because I am looking for what key is being pressed. And then I'll go with something like dot key. Okay, that is my actual key. Okay, and then I'm going to be adding a case. So now for my case, I'm going to check if my SDL's key is, let's say, something like A. I'm going to do something. Let's go ahead and increase my mage. I might go with something like mage dot x-axis, or let's go with something like mage rects dot x-axis is going to be decreasing by my x-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to break, and then let's go ahead and add one for my D as well. So this is going to be my second case. If my SDL's key is, let's say, something like D, I'm going to do something. Let's go with something like mage.rect.x-axis is going to increase. What up, guys? There we go. It's going to increase by my x-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and break as well. Okay, and maybe I might actually add this in a much more cleaner way to write. What up, guys? Apparently that looks like much better when writing, and like it takes lesser lines of code as well. Okay, let's do that for my mage here as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete these extra spaces. There we go. Maybe add a space here. Okay, honestly this wasn't necessary, but I feel like, guys, this looks like much better. Okay, now after I'm done with my if statements, okay, hold up, guys. Maybe I don't like automate my objects just yet here. I'm gonna do something. I'll go with something like A down and set that equal to true. My bad, guys. There we go. So while my A is currently being pushed down, I'm going to set my A down boolean variable, which is initially set to false. Now it's set to true. I'm going to do the same thing for my D down. Okay, so I'm going to go with D down, which is going to be set to true as well. Ending with a semicolon. How old are you? Honestly, I am like 17 years old. That's it. I am going to be turning like 18 really soon, guys. My birthday is like this January 5th. I'm kind of excited, but I might not have like a special stream for that day. That said, now, after I'm done with my if statement, sure, let's go ahead and add another if statement. And honestly, just to save time, I'm going to just paste this if statement. And now I'm just going to do a few changes. So I'm going to change key down to be key up. And then let's go ahead and change A down to be false. So now if my user is not pushing my key downwards, I'm going to set this to false. And let's change this to be false as well. Okay, perfect. Now that's honestly pretty much it for my while loop as well. Now let's go ahead and exit outside of my event loop one more time. and then add a comment that says something like key control. This is where I'm going to be moving my objects depending on what key is currently being pressed. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, now firstly I'm gonna add a if statement to check something. So I'll go with something like if a parentheses. Let's say something like if my a is being pushed down, I'm gonna do something. I'll go with something like, I don't know, maybe a pair of curly braces, and then my mage rect. So I'm gonna go with something like mage rect dot x-axis is gonna increase by my x-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and then let's do the same exact thing for my for my d down as well. If a pair of parentheses, let's say while my d is being pushed down, I'm gonna do something. I'll go with something like my mage rect. So, guys, there we go. Mage rect dot x-axis is going to be increasing by my x-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon, and I will be changing this to minus. Can you show the results? Honestly, I think I am actually done. Are you single? Honestly, guys, I've always been single. Okay, that said, that's pretty much it, I think. I don't think there's anything else to do. So if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, are you from South? Honestly, no. Okay, that's it. Let's get my second window here as well. This is a pretty big window now. Okay, so now if I press my D, I go to the left. If I press A, I go to the right. Okay, perfect. That's honestly pretty much, that's actually pretty cool actually. Okay, I just gotta work on adding gravity now and then maybe collision logic as well. Guys, this seems kind of cool now. Okay, let's go ahead and accept that and that as well. Okay, maybe I do want to add a background as well. Maybe I might go with like backgrounds later on. That's it. Maybe I do try adding this one more time, or do like multiple stuff like automating, going up and down type stuff. I do want to work with gravity. You say honestly so frequently. Honestly, that does make sense. I feel like I should stop saying honestly. Because like guys, I feel like I've been saying that like way too much for the past few days. Excuse me guys, that's it. Let's go ahead and copy that. Now let's get sensei slash ChatGPT here. Let's go ahead and paste this. Go shift enter and say something like, let's say, I wrote this code that moves my let's say okay, let's say something like that moves my NPC or my mage with my keys, or by using my keys exclamation. Okay, let's see. People, good. This is real game development movement, not the fake tutorial stuff. Your stream should be watching you right now. Like, bro is actually cooking. Guys, I feel like I'm not cooking. This was kind of easy. That's it, but hold still. Because I'm about to slap you with the truth. You made two little mistakes. Nothing explodes, but there's sins against clean code. And Sensei doesn't let sin slide. You wrote x-axis underscore velocity for no reason. Here, okay, SDL underscore. Okay, guys, why did I have x-axis underscore velocity? That does nothing, it just sits there. Maybe when I delete it, I didn't like pay attention. Okay, step 2, you hard-coded the rects width and height instead of using the texture's real width and height. Okay, to fix that is width and height, you should always get the real texture. So, get texture size, integer, What up guys, I didn't understand this part. Okay, wait, let me actually copy this part real quick. So, let's go ahead and paste it here, go with shift enter and say something like sensei. I didn't understand this part. Maybe can you explain okay, let's say something like, can you explain it again, question mark. Okay, let's see. Okay, people, look at me, focus. You're live, your viewers are watching, and I'm not letting you get away with half understanding this. I'll break this down so even the gods of SDL themselves would nod. Why did I write this? Integer TW and integer of th, and then SDL underscore get texture size. That is, I think that's like a new function. Because your PNG has real size, your mage image might be 128 by 128 or 512 by 256 or anything. Bro, what you doing? Honestly, I'm actually like learning about images like SDL3 using C++. That said, I am actually, maybe I might, like after the stream is done, I might do some college stuff, and once I'm done with my college stuff, I might draw some more, images, and like use that next stream. Maybe I might go with like a shopping program. I don't know, guys. That's it. You cannot guess. SDL knows the real size because it loaded the PNG into a texture. So we ask politely but aggressively, SDL, tell me the truth, width and height of this texture. And SDL replies by writing variables. Okay, so that is my image. So TW's textures is width, textures is height. Then this part uses the real size. So I go with something like scale image x-axis y-axis. Width is going to be a floating point of TW and a floating point of TH. I think I see. What up, guys? Maybe I see. So I get my texture of my image. So that is my mage images texture. I get the texture TWTH. Okay, and then I add that inside of my scale. Although I have a question about this part, let's go ahead and copy that. Okay, let's copy this, paste it here, and say something like, let's say, I feel like I understand now, ... Although I just didn't understand this part. Okay, I didn't understand why did we add a float there. That's it. Let me check if my stream's going good everywhere. Okay, is it going good like on Kick and Twitch as well? Okay, I think it's going good. Okay, let me check on YouTube, horizontal and vertical. Okay, I honestly think it is going pretty good. Let me go ahead and extend that from there, extend it from here as well. Get that here. Alright, perfect. Guys, why is it still thinking? Let me go ahead and copy that. Let's go ahead and refresh, maybe. What up, guys? Let me try pasting it again. Okay, let me paste it again here. Okay, let's see. People, listen carefully. You're this close to understanding something really everywhere programmer must know. Let's break it down openly like we're smashing a training dummy. What float TW and float TH really means. TW and TH are integers. Your image's width height comes out as integer because SDL stores them that way. But your scale function expects floats for W and H. Here's your function. Okay. Oh, notice W is float and H is a float as well. So I typecasted. This is called typecasting. I see. Okay, I think I see. Let me actually try that real quick. Okay, so where do I add those? Maybe I add those after I'm done creating my texture here and before I scale it. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like get images width, or I might just go with something like get width and height. So I'll go with something like get width and height. Okay, for my image, I'll go with something like for image. Okay, now to get the width and height, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore texture size. So I'll go with the texture size function. Okay, is this the correct function name? I don't think it is the correct function name. What up, guys? SDL underscore texture. Guys, I forgot the function name. Hold up, give it a sec, guys. So there we go. Okay, so the function name is what was the function name, guys? Okay, it's get texture size. There we go. So I might go with something like SDL underscore get texture size function. Okay, let's see the parameters that it requires. It requires a texture, a floating point width, and a floating point height. Okay, these are floating point numbers. So let's go ahead and create something like a float of, I don't know, maybe width ending with a semicolon, and then I'll go with something like a float of height. So I'll go with float of height ending with a semicolon as well. And then I first need my texture parameter. So this is going to be something like my mage image. And then I'll add a comma. I'll go with something like the memory address of my width and the memory address of my height, ending with a semicolon. And now when I do scale my images, I will be going with something like my width variable and my height variable. There we go. Okay, perfect. Now if I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, kind of curious to see what happens, guys. I do not see my image at all. Did I render them properly? Well, maybe this gotta be integers. Would that make a difference? Okay, let me see /GPs. I don't know what you're doing exactly, but your consistency is good, man. Honestly, I appreciate you, Asian. That's how I feel like. I do like try to explain it as much as I can when I do this. That said, it's TW and TH. Okay, so texture width and texture height. So I get my size. I did get my size. And then I add it here. Maybe the two are floating points. Okay, wait, let me actually go with the control. A control C, copy that. Let's get some /GPT here. Let's go ahead and paste this. Go with shift enter and say something like, let's say, I feel like I did everything correct, but I don't see my PNG at all now, ... Is it because my W and H were not ints and they were floats instead question mark. Okay, let's see guys, I feel like I'm improving with my typos. That's it people, how do you manage to break something this simple in 5 seconds? Come here, sit down, I'm fixing your brain. Your width and height disappearing has nothing to do with floats. SDL accepts floats for width and height. Okay, use the wrong function signature. Did I say texture here? Okay, it does not take floats, it takes integers. You gave it floats. Okay, I mean, it says floats. SDL is not showing integer bits into floating memory. Okay, let's try changing this to integer real quick. What up guys, let me try changing it to integer. Where are my variables at? Maybe I scroll all the way up here. There we go. Okay, let's change that to something like an integer. Okay, of the texture of my width, and then I'm going to add a comma, texture of my height. And then let's go ahead and delete this. Okay, now I'm going to change that to TW and TH. There we go. Okay, and then let me change that to something like a float. So I'll add a pair of parentheses, typecast my TW to be a float. And then I'm going to typecast my TH to be a float as well. So I'm going to go with something like a float of TH. Okay, perfect. And these, I did give it the memory address. Why do I see like a red underline in that case? Hold up guys, that's an integer, but I do require floats. I do not require integers. Can I like copy this or something? Okay, let's go with Control S. I am going to be getting an error here, but let's see which error I get. Okay, it says type inside. I was correct. I was actually correct. Let's go ahead and change that to be a float real quick. So go with something like float. Okay, it does work with a float now, and I wouldn't have to typecast this. What up guys, I think that I'm doing like a silly mistake. If I hit Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I'm pretty sure that I'm doing a silly mistake. Okay, using A. Guys, that jump scared me, I'm not even gonna lie. That actually jump scared me, guys, hold up. Okay, so this is my mage. My mage is being shown here. Okay, so, okay, at least it is there in the screen. I just gotta change his x-axis, y-axis. Maybe I change its scales as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and change this to something like 0.5, which is 50% of his original size. Now for it, Control S to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. So I get my first window here, my second window here. There we go, that is like somewhat a good size. Maybe I change it to 0.1, which is like 10%. And now for it, Control S to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. Alright guys, this actually looks perfect. Okay, actually this does look pretty good now. Okay, how big is like 0.2? I think it's going to be like a bit, it's going to be like a little bigger. Okay, let's go ahead and copy that. Alright guys, I think that's actually perfect. Okay, it actually moves perfectly. Alright, let's even moves here. Later, I might even add like the trapping logic and how to like trap my player in the window. Okay, that's it. Before I do that, let's go ahead and copy that. So, get some c/chatgp here. Let's go ahead and paste it. Go with Shift Enter and say something like, should say it works exclamation. Okay, I had to use floats. Although I did, let's say something like I had to use floats. Although I did change my size just so I could actually see it. Okay, honestly, what is the next thing that I should do? Should I actually go with, I don't know, maybe... Okay, should I go with like loading backgrounds? Good. The mage lives again. Come here, head pad. You actually fixed that. Fixed it fast, you little menace. Now, listen to me carefully. You didn't need floats. You got lucky this time because your scale function takes floats anyway. SDL gives the texture size. Okay, whatever. Let me say something like... Alright, let's see something like next. Your next milestone is adding multiple PNGs and managing them. Okay, cleanly. This is where your game stops being a project and starts becoming a world. When you're ready, we add multiple images, arrays or vectors of textures, automatic loading, automatic cleanup, animation, frame, sprite stats. Okay, those are kind of advanced. Let me actually think what I might need next. Okay, I know how to automate one image. Maybe I want to like automate another image as well, so I can like move an image with key control. Okay, I think that's like pretty much it, honestly. I might actually, work with like adding multiple more images and like adding a floor too. Okay guys, I'm actually going to try something new this time. Alright, so let me start off by including a pair of ankle braces. Let's say I want to include IO stream, and since I am going to be using SDL3, let me go ahead and include a pair of ankle braces again. Let's say I want to include SDL3 slash SDL.h, which is basically SDL's header files. And then let's go ahead and include a pair of ankle braces again. Let's say I want to include SDL3's image library slash SDL underscore images header file. So I'm going to go with .h. Okay, now let's go ahead and create a main function. So I'm going to go with integer main array pair of parentheses. My main function does require a few parameters, actually two parameters. The first parameter is going to be an integer of argc. The second parameter is going to be a character of argv, which is technically an array. So I'm going to go with the pair of square brackets. That's an array of argv. Okay, and then let's go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside of my main function, I'm going to go ahead and do something. Firstly, let's go ahead and add an if statement that initializes my SDL and also checks if my SDL was not initialized properly. To do that, I could go with something like if not SDL underscore init if my SDL was not initialized properly, and the SDL underscore init underscore video section of my SDL was not initialized properly. I'm going to do something. Firstly, let's go ahead and add a standard C error with an insertion operator. This is gonna go ahead and give me something like an SDL underscore init error. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add another insertion operator. This time I'm going to be using the function that actually gets me an error. So I'll go with SDL underscore get error with a pair of parentheses to invoke the function. Then let's go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go ahead and return one saying something is wrong in this block of code. Check it out. Okay, now after adding my if statement, I'm going to be adding a comment that says game variables. I'm going to be loading my basic game variables. That said, I do want to, whatchamacallit, let me actually load it real quick. There we go. That said, I do want to work with object-oriented programming as well. Maybe next stream I will go over like gravity, and then after that I might go over object-oriented programming and some game logic. Okay, that's it. Firstly, let's go ahead and add something like a constant integer of width. So I'm going to be creating a width, which is going to be 800, ending with a semicolon. Then let's go with something like a constant integer of height, which is going to be equal to 600, ending with a semicolon. Maybe I might change this to 800 and change that to 1000. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. And now, after that, let's go ahead and add a, let's say something like, I might need two more variables. So I might go with something like a floating point for my x-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be something like, I don't know, maybe 6 pixels per frame. That is going to be a floating point number. And then I'm going to go with something like another floating point for my y-axis underscore velocity, which is going to be something like 6 pixels per frame as well, ending with a semicolon. Now let's go ahead and add my main loop. So I'm going to go ahead and say something like, okay, before my main loop, firstly, I'm going to be creating my window and my renderer both at the same time. So I might go with a comment that says something like create window. What are you doing? Honestly, I'm like, whatchamacallit, I'm working on actually learning what images. Today, I am going to be wrapping up images in SDL3 using C++. Next stream, maybe I might go over like on how gravity works and like collision logic works and how to trap my player in the window. Did bro get a new setup? Honestly, I did actually get a new setup. I did whatchamacallit, add a whole stream on that about where I did build a PC and showed you guys my actual new setup. That's it. I'm going to say something like create window and renderer. Okay, now for my create window and renderer, firstly, I'm going to be creating two variables. Let's say my first variable is going to be something like SDL underscore window. Okay, with an asterisk to, let's say something like my window variable, that is going to be set to something like null PDR for the time being, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and add something like SDL underscore renderer. So I'm going to create a renderer as well, which is going to be set to null PDR2. That is basically a placeholder. Now, after I'm done putting both my local variables, let's use the function that actually does create my window and renderer both at the same time. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore create a window and a renderer function. There we go. Bro says honestly for every answer. Honestly, guys, that does make sense. I should honestly stop saying honestly. Maybe I'm going to try not saying it for the next 10 minutes. Okay, that's it. Now, for my SDL underscore create window and render function, I will be requiring a few parameters. The first parameter that I'm going to be adding is going to be something like a title slash a caption for my window. So I'm going to go with something like SDL3 window created. What are you doing? Actually, whatchamacallit, guys, I was almost going to say honestly, maybe. I'm actually working on creating whatchamacallit, loading images in SDL3 C++, learning how to automate them, learning on how to move them to key controls, and like learning how to texture them. add sizes, and render them on my screen as well. It does sound pretty complicating, but I feel like it is kind of easy, honestly. Okay, that said, after I'm done with adding my title, I am going to be needing a width and height, so I might go with something like my width variable and my height variable. And then my fourth parameter is going to be a flag, so I might go with something like SDL underscore window underscore resizable. This flag makes my window resizable. That's it. If you guys like didn't want to add a flag, you guys could like add a 0 here. Alright guys, let me fix my spelling real quick. There we go. And then I'm going to add a comma. Lastly, my fifth and sixth variable is going to be the memory address of my window local variable and my renderer local variable. All the best. Honestly, I appreciate you. Octane, is that how you pronounce your name? Did he just say it's pretty easy? Honestly, guys, I should actually stop saying it. I feel like I'm so used to saying it. Okay, that's it. I'm going to go with something like window, and then I'll go with something like an ampersand slash a memory address of my renderer variable. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and end my entire function with a semicolon. Now that I've created my window and renderer, let's go ahead and add a if statement that checks if they were not created properly. To do that, I could go with something like if a of parentheses, let's say something like if not window or if not renderer, I'm going to do something. I'll go with a of curly braces, and then let's go ahead and add a standard C error with an insertion operator. Okay, I'm going to add an insertion operator down here because I am going to be saying that I got this error and this name is pretty big of my function. Keep going, bro. Honestly, I appreciate you, Trash. Is there a tutorial? Honestly, I'm not actually following a tutorial. That's it. I did like I did initially use ChatGPT to learn all this. Now I'm just like doing some practice on my own, so I do understand the concept. Okay, it's day 56. Wasn't it day 60 a few streams ago? Honestly, there's like two concepts. It might be day 60 for my programming for 258 series, although it is day 56 for like my C++ for 100 series. Like C++ for 100 series is like indented inside of my programming for 258 series. Okay, guys, that was actually a mouthful. Bro, couldn't make 10 minutes. Guys, I'm gonna try again. Okay, try, but never cry, guys. Okay, that's how I'll go with something like SDL underscore create a window and renderer error. So there we go. Okay, so this is going to be the error that I'm going to get. Then I'll add another insertion operator of something like a standard, actually a SDL underscore get errors as function. This function actually gets me an error. Then I'm going to go with another insertion operator and add a standard end line ending with a semicolon. Okay, window plus control plus shift plus B requests your graphic driver. Maybe that will make the quality better. Guys, is the stream quality bad? I think the stream quality is actually pretty good. Okay, that said, after I'm done with that, let's go ahead and firstly, if my window and my renderer was not created properly, I am going to be exiting my SDL or quitting my SDL. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore quit with a of parentheses, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and return once saying something went wrong in this block of code. Okay, now after I'm done creating my window, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like load texture. So I'm going to go ahead and load my texture. Okay, you from? Honestly, I used to answer a lot, but like many of you guys did say me to avoid saying that, and I did actually start avoid saying it. Okay, that's it. I'll go with something like, maybe something like load image. So I'll go with something like load image, a comment that says load image. Now let's go ahead and load a few images. Maybe this time I'm going to be having two images. The first image could be something like my SDL underscore frects. Okay, actually SDL underscore texture. There we go. This is a texture structure that consists of all my texture attributes. That is going to be having a memory address for something like my devil images texture, which is going to be set to my image underscore load texture function. Guys, there are so many functions here. That said, my load texture function does require two parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer variable. The second parameter is going to be the file path for my devil images PNG. So my file path is going to be something like my assets slash my, let's say something like devil.png. So this is basically my file path. What do you mean it's like 240p? Guys, I feel like it is pretty clear because like I'm like seeing the stream on my phone as well. Maybe you guys should like try restarting the stream. What up, guys? Let me actually check it again. Okay, give me a sec, guys. Okay, give me a second. Let me actually check if my stream is actually clear or not. Let's go with something like worse. Okay, let's see. Yeah, guys, I feel like it is actually pretty clear. Maybe you guys should like just restart the stream. That's it. I'm gonna go ahead and end this with a semicolon. And now that I'm done like loading my images, let's add a comment that creates my rect and also scales my image at the same time. My bad, it was my YouTube settings. Oh, I see. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go with something like create rect. So I'm gonna say create rect and scale. So I'll go with something like create and scale rect and scale rect. There we go. Okay, okay, now for my create and scale rect, firstly, I'm going to be adding a function that does scale my rectangle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let's say create a function. So I'm going to go with SDL underscore frect is going to be my data member. A function is going to be called scale. So I'm going to go with a scale function with a pair of parentheses. Now, my scale function does require a few parameters. Let's say the first parameter is going to be something like my SDL underscore texture, my, whatchamacallit, my actual texture, which is basically my devil image in this case. That is my STL underscore texture. And then I'm going to add a comment here. Now I'm going to be adding a bunch more parameters. The first parameter is going to be a floating point for x-axis. The second is going to be a floating point y-axis. Third is going to be a floating point width. Fourth is going to be a floating point height. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to be requiring something like a floating point of scale. And then once I'm done adding all my parameters, I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces. Now, inside of my pair of curly braces, let's go ahead and do something. Firstly, I'm going to go ahead and, I don't know, maybe create a SDL underscore frects structure again, and a rect which consists of all my SDL underscore frects attributes, ending with a semicolon. Now, let's fill in a few attributes. So I'll go with something like my rect.x-axis equals to my x-axis, which is like filled in my parameter. And then I'm going to go and add something like rect.y-axis that equals to my y-axis, ending with a semicolon as well. Rect.width. This time my width is going to be equal to my width parameter, but I'm going to be multiplying that with my scale, ending with a semicolon. And lastly, I'll go with something like rect.height, which equals to my height multiplied by my scale as well, ending with a semicolon. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let's lastly go ahead and return my rect, ending with a semicolon. Alright, perfect. Now that I'm done with that, let's go ahead and scroll all the way down. Come under my create scale and rect. Let's go ahead and create a rectangle for my devil image. Oh hey, well, we're back. Hiding Samar, is that how you pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. How's it going? Honestly, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing? Okay, that said, I'm gonna go ahead and add something here. So let's go ahead and add something like STL underscore frect, because I do want to create a rectangle for my devil image. So I'll go with something like devil rect with which is going to be equal to, let's say, my scale function with a pair of parentheses. Now I'm going to be returning a few, or like adding a few parameters. The first parameter that I'm going to be requiring is going to be a texture. My texture is basically my devil image. And then I'm going to add a comma. Now only the x-axis, y-axis, width and height. Honestly, to do that, bro, I love you. Honestly, I do appreciate you, Bart. Okay, did you download GeoBra, by the way, like we told last time? Honestly, I will like install that. That's whatchamacallit, because like I did actually memorize the coordinates for like a triangle. That's it, I should have installed it. Why rect.x-axis equals y-axis? Did I add a typo? Oh, my bad, guys. Okay, rect.y-axis equals y-axis. Guys, how do you guys actually pay way too much attention to this stuff? That's it, I should like work more on my typos. Okay, and then I go with something like devil image. Now my x-axis is going to be something. Okay, I do remember I have to get my texture size. So after I load my image, I'm going to add a comment here that says something like texture size. So I'll go with something like texture size. There we go. To get my texture size, I'll use the SDL underscore get texture or get texture size. Guys, I forgot the function name. Was it something like get texture size? Let me actually try that. There we go. Okay, it was get texture size with a pair of parentheses. Now this requires it requires three parameters. First is going to be my texture parameter, which is going to be my devil image. The second and third parameter is going to be let's see, a floating point width and a floating point height. So a texture's width and a texture's height. I could go ahead and add that here. So I'll go with something like a floating point of textures is width and textures is height, ending with a semicolon. Okay, so let's go with something like ampersand texture width, comma, the memory address of my texture height as well, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. And then now after I'm done getting my texture size, under my frect, I'm going to add a x-axis, y-axis. Let's say my x-axis is going to be 0, y-axis is going to be 300. Okay, maybe I go with 100. I want him to be like relatively lower. Okay, yo, bro, my bad. I'm late. How's your day so far, bro? Honestly, I'm doing pretty good. Michael, is that pronounce your name? Honestly, I do appreciate you joining the stream as well. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and copy this. Now, I'm gonna be needing a width and height as well. So my width is gonna be my texture width is variable, and height is gonna be my texture height. And then lastly, I'm gonna be needing a scale. Let's say something like my scale is gonna be 0.2, ending with a semicolon. And that's pretty much it for creating a rectangle and like scaling my whatchamacallit. I actually forgot scaling my rectangle as well. Okay, that's it. Now let's go ahead and create my main loop. Finally, guys, main loop time. Okay, before my main loop, I am going to be having two images. One is going to be my NPC and one is going to be my player. Let's say that's whatchamacallit, my mage or like my devil image is my NPC. Let's go ahead and add my player image as well. So I might go with something like SDL underscore texture again. So I'm going to go ahead and create a texture. This is going to be called something like player image. So I might go with something like player img, which is going to be equal to image underscore load texture function. Now this function requires two parameters again. The first parameter is going to be my renderer variable. The second parameter is going to be my file path. My file path is going to be my asset slash my player.png. Okay, perfect. And then let's end my function with a semicolon. Okay, and then let's go ahead and get the the texture for my function. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that. Let's paste it here. Let's change my devil image to my player underscore image. There we go. Okay, and then let's go ahead and create a rect for it as well. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this just to save time. I'm going to paste it here. Just joined the stream. Can you give a quick recap on what you're doing? Thanks. Honestly, I'm actually like learning on how to load images and like automate the image. I did like learn on how to automate a PNG slash a image. I did like learn to automate them and even like learn to move them using key controls. That's it. Now I'm trying to like mix both of them and like automate and add key controls both to my image, because like I do have a NPC that's going to be coming from a different direction from where my actual player is, and my players just got to jump above the NPC, if that made any sense, or just dodge my NPC in general. Okay, that's it. I didn't like add collision logic though. I might actually need to add that. Okay, that's it. I'm going to change the devil rect to be something like player rect. Okay, and then my player rect is going to be having the texture of my player image. Okay, and then TW and TH. Maybe I add a function here that goes with TWTH. No, I think actually this is correct. I think that's correct. Okay, now after I'm done with this, now let's go ahead and add a main loop. So I'm going to go with something like main loop. For my main loop, firstly, let's go ahead and create a few boolean variables. So I'm going to go ahead and create 4 boolean variables. The first boolean variable is going to be W down, which means is my W being currently pushed down? It's currently not being pushed down, so I'm going to be setting that to false. And then I'm going to go ahead and add something like S down, which is going to be set to false as well. My S is not being pushed down. And then let's go ahead and add something like A down. I'm going to set that equal to false as well, because my A down is not being pushed down. And then lastly, I'm going to go with something like D down. I'm going to be setting that to be false as well, because my D is not being pushed down currently. There we go, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and add another boolean variable. So I'll go with something like a boolean of is running, which is going to be initially set to true, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and then now finally let's add our final variable, which is going to be event variable. I am going to be needing a event variable to like check my current event type. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore event with a prof. Okay, SDL underscore event, the structure and an event variable that consists of all the attributes of my SDL underscore events structure. Okay, now let's go ahead and add a while loop. So I'm going to go with something like while a prof parentheses. Let's say something like while is running, while my program is running, I'm going to do something. 4th grade coding lol, guys. Do they even teach like programming in like 4th grade? I feel like that might be pretty cool. Okay, that said, let me go ahead and add an event loop. So I'm going to go with something like event loop. Now, for my event loop, firstly, I'm going to be adding another while loop. So it's a while loop inside of while loop, basically a nested loop. So I'm going to go with something like while a prof parentheses. Let's say something like while SDL underscore poll event. Basically, what the SDL underscore poll event function does is it like looks for all the event that I'm going to be adding here, and if one of my event did meet with the actual original event, then it's going to do something that I set it to do. I made that sound pretty confusing. That said, my SDL underscore poll event does require the memory address of my event variable as the parameter. Okay, next up, let's add an event type. So I'm going to go with something like if a prof parentheses. let's see if my event variable dot type equals to SDL underscore event underscore quit. I'm going to do something. Okay, I'm going to add a pair of curly braces and then set something like my is running boolean variable to be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. And then now let's go ahead and add a few more events for like my keys as well, because I do want to turn them to false and like true as well. Okay, that's it. Let's add another if statement. So I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if my event dot type equals to SDL underscore event underscore, I don't know, maybe key underscore down. This event type basically whatchamacallit, checks if my key button is currently being pushed down. Okay, if it is, I'm going to be using switches here, so I'll go with something like a switch and then a pair of parentheses. Okay, let's add a parameter of something like event.key.key. This looks for the exact key that's currently being pushed down. Event.key is like all the keys. The second dot key is like one specific key out of all the keys that's currently being pushed down. I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces. And then let's go ahead and do something. So I'm going to go with something like a case. So I'm going to go with if my case 1 is SDL underscore key. So if my key currently is something like W, then I'm going to do something. Okay, firstly, I'm going to set my W down to be equal to true because my W is currently being pushed down. And then I'm going to break, ending with a semicolon. Now let's add my second case. So for my second case, if my key type is, let's say, something like S, then I'm going to do something. My S down boolean variable is going to be set to true. Then I'm going to break, ending with a semicolon. Now, for my third case, I'm going to check if my SDL's key is something like A. If it is A, I'm going to go with something like A down, and I'm going to set that equal to true as well, ending with a semicolon. Then let's go ahead and break. Lastly, I'm going to check for my final and my fourth case, which is going to be something like SDL's key is D. If my D is currently being pushed down, I'm going to do something. I'm going to go with something like D down, which is going to be set to true, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and break. Okay, perfect. That's honestly pretty much it for my key down event types. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my this if statement and paste it under that just to save time. Now, I'm not going to be like changing everything, but I will be changing the ups to downs and the trues to false. Because now this is going to be looking for if my key is not being pushed down anymore. If it's not being pushed down, that means it did be pushed up, if that made any sense. Because like if you push a key downwards, it's like pushed down. We leave it, it's like pushed up. Okay, if it is being pushed up, then these are going to be set to false. Okay, and that's pretty much it for like my event loop. So let's go ahead and exit outside of my event loop. Okay, and then let's add a comment that says something like key controls. So I'm going to add a comment here that says key controls. This is where I'm going to do something. Okay, did I create a y-axis underscore velocity under my game variables? Okay, I did create a y-axis velocity. Alright, so for my key controls, firstly, I'll go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if my I might go with something like if my D down is set to true, I'm going to do something. Let's go with a pair of curly braces. Okay, I want to automate my object, so I'm going to go with something like okay, if D down is set to true, I'll go with something like my player rect.x-axis, that is going to be increasing by my x-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add a few more if statements. I'm going to go with something like if a pair of parentheses. Let's say something like if my S down, my bad guys, this is going to be W down. Okay, so if my W is being pushed, I'm going to be, let's say, increasing my player's y-axis underscore velocity. Because like W is like to go above. So I'm going to decrease that by my y-axis underscore velocity. Okay, and if my S is being pushed, then I'm going to go with something like my player rect dot x-axis. I'm going to increase it by my y-axis underscore velocity, ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and add another if statement for my A, if a pair of parentheses. Let's say if my A is being currently pushed down, I'm going to go with something like my player rect dot x-axis is going to, let's say something like decrease by my x-axis underscore velocity this time. And guys, I just realized something. What up guys, x-axis underscore velocity ending with a semicolon. Let's change these x's to y's because I am working like with the vertical screen, not the horizontal. Okay, now lastly, let's add another if statement. If a pair of parentheses, Let's say something like if my d down is set to true, so I'm going to go with something like if d down is set to true, I'm going to do something. I'll go with something like player rect dot x-axis is going to increase by my x-axis underscore velocity ending with a semicolon. Okay, and that's honestly pretty much it for like my key controls. Now that I'm done with key controls, let's go ahead and exit outside of my if statement, add another comment that says something like fill screen. Now I'm going to be filling my screen with a color. Okay, so I want to fill my screen with a cyan color. Honestly, I might go with something like an orange, but I don't know the RGB for orange. Maybe I do go with something like a cyan, so I'll go with something like SDL underscore set render draw color function. So I'm going to be setting my render to draw a color. Basically what this means is before I do like color or add any kind of color in my screen, I gotta use this function to like add a actual color to my renderer. This function does require a few parameters. The first parameter is going to be my renderer variable. The second, third, and fourth parameter is going to be a RGB value. So I'm going to go with something like cyan. So 2. Okay, I'll go with something like 0, 248, and 255 for my RGB. Lastly, I'm going to need a alpha parameter as well as my fifth parameter, which is like the opacity. I'm going to set my alpha to be 255 because I don't want my color to be transparent at all. Okay, now once I'm done setting a color in my renderer, let's use the function that actually colors my screen. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore render clear. The render clear function basically clears my entire screen with my renderer. Although I am going to be adding a parameter of my renderer here, ending with a semicolon. Now, after I'm done filling my screen, let's go ahead and add a comment that says something like graphics. And now I'm going to be working with my graphics. Okay, for my graphics, I did, let's say, under my texture size, I did like add 2 images. So let's go ahead and add a graphic for those 2 images. To do that, I could go with something like SDL underscore render. So I'm saying my render to add texture or like to render texture. Okay, my SDL underscore render texture function does require 5 parameters. First is going to be my render variables parameter. Maybe I go in a new line and then write it. What up, guys? So there we go. Okay, so the first is going to be my render variable. The second is going to be my texture. Let's say I'm going to go with something like my devil images texture here. Okay. Okay, excuse me, guys. And then let's go ahead and add a null PDR for my third, for my third parameter, because it does require like a source rect. And I actually didn't add a source rect, and then I'll add a comma. Lastly, my fourth parameter is going to be a DST rect, which is basically my rect that I created here for for both my rectangles, so devil rect and player rect. So I might go with something like devil rect here. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end this with a semicolon. And guys, I keep doing this mistake every single time. It's not just my devil rect, it's the memory address of my devil rect, because I don't want to move a copy of my rectangle. I want to move the actual rectangle. Okay, now let's go ahead and copy that. Just to save time, I'm going to paste it here. And now let's change devil rect to something like player rect. And then let's go ahead and change actually devil image to player image and devil rect to player rect. Okay, perfect. And that's honestly pretty much it for my render graphics or my texture graphics. Now let's go ahead and go all the way down. Now, under my graphics, I'm going to be adding a comment that's going to say something like automate NPCs. So I'm going to be automating my NPCs here. Just do SDL injection. Honestly, I haven't like heard of SDL injection. What does that do? Okay, that's let me scroll all the way up. I want to see the position of my devil rect. So it starts at 0, 100. Let's change this to something like 800, 100. Okay. You said honestly again, guys. I feel like I keep saying honestly. I should actually stop saying honestly. That said, after I'm done, let me go ahead and automate my this thing real quick. Okay, so I might go with something like okay, so I could go with something like my devil rect. So I'll go with something like devil rect dot x-axis is going to be increasing by, let's say, something like my x-axis underscore velocity, because I do want to increase my devil rect and x-axis by my x-axis. Okay, then I'm gonna go ahead and end that with a semicolon. And now let's add a if statement to like loop my NPC, because I didn't add like a code that actually traps them in a window. To loop, I could go with something like if my devil rect dot x-axis, if my devil's x-axis is, let's say, something like less than or equal to, I don't know, maybe something like 1,000, then I'm gonna do something. I'll go with a pair of curly braces and reset my devil rect dot x-axis to be equal to Okay, maybe instead of going with 0, let's initially start my devil rect with something like -100. Because that's like a bit like outside my window. So I'll go with -100. Okay, and then let's go ahead and end that with a semicolon. And that's like honestly pretty much it. I didn't add collision logic here. Duh. Okay, and then after that, once I'm done automating my objects, let's go ahead and present my render on my screen. To do that, I could go ahead and add a comment that says something like present. For presenting, I could go ahead and use the SDL underscore render present function. So I'm saying my render to present something on my screen. This is going to be my render variable ending with a semicolon. And then let's go ahead and add a FPS variable. So I'm going to go with FPS. Now for my FPS, let's use the function that actually adds my FPS. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore delay function with a pair of parentheses. Now my SDL underscore delay. There we go, guys. I think I spelled it wrong. There we go. Okay, my SDL underscore delay function does require parameter in milliseconds. I'm going to be adding 16 milliseconds, which is basically 60 frames per second, ending with a semicolon. Okay, perfect. And that's honestly pretty much it for my main function. Now let's go ahead and exit outside of my main function and then add a few and do some cleanup. So I'm going to add a comment that says something like cleanup. Now, for my cleanup, firstly, once my user does exit my window, I do want to destroy my window. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy window with a pair of parentheses. So this is going to be my window variable ending with a semicolon. Guys, let me fix my destroy's spelling. Okay, and then next up, let's go ahead and destroy my renderer as well. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy renderer with a pair of parentheses. This is going to be my renderer variable ending with a semicolon. Guys, I keep spelling destroy wrong. Okay, and then let's go ahead and destroy my texture as well. And since I do have two textures, do I want to use like a for loop? Maybe I'll use a for loop next time. So I'll go with something like SDL underscore destroy texture with a pair of parentheses. Guys, I keep spelling destroy wrong. Okay, so I'm going to be adding a parameter of my devil image, okay, ending with a semicolon. Then let's go ahead and copy that just to save time. And then let's go ahead and paste it here. And just change my devil image to be something like my player image. Let's change devil to something like player. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and quit my SDL. So I'm going to go with SDL underscore quit ending with a semicolon. Lastly, let's go ahead and return 0 saying everything went good ending with a semicolon. Now, important control is to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I get my first terminal here and then I get my second terminal there. Although no one's moving except my player. Okay, my whatchamacallit, my this guy doesn't actually move. My what was his name? I forgot. My devil's PNG does not move. So to fix that, let's go all the way up here. So okay, devil's rect.x-axis is going to increase while my x-axis underscore velocity. Maybe because I set his whatchamacallit, I set him to be at the complete edge so he doesn't have space to move anymore. Okay, so to fix that, maybe I could go ahead and change his size. So let's change that to 0.1 and change that to 0.1 as well. And let's just change their positions. I'm going to set this to negative 100. Okay, negative 100, positive 100. Let's change that to 800. Okay, now for the controller has to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. I get my first window here and my second window there. Guys, didn't anything like save? Okay, their sizes are pretty good, although let's see. Why does my devil not move? Let's see. So maybe I scroll a little lower. I'm pretty sure that I got a typo here. Okay, I'm pretty sure there's like a silly mistake. So devil rect is going to increase by x-axis underscore velocity. What happens if I say something like decrease by x-axis underscore velocity? And now if I run the code. Okay, so honestly, it's just stuck here. Like my PNG is like just stuck here. That's it. Let's go ahead and increase that. Let's go with something like Control A, Control C, copy that. Let's get some say/GPT here. Okay, now let's go ahead and paste this and then go with something like, let's say, I feel like, what up guys, let me actually mute myself real quick. Alright, mic testing. Okay guys, I just had like some background noises. That's it. Let's go ahead and say something like, I feel like, okay, I feel like I messed up a bit, question mark. So let's say something like I messed up a bit, question mark, because my devil PNG does not move, dot dot dot. Okay, let's see. Okay, sit down. About to yell, but with, okay, your devil isn't moving because you wrote the most glorious bug of all time. Look at this. I knew there was something wrong here. If devil.rect is less than or equal to 1000, devil.rect's position is going to be that. Since it's slab stable, why would you reset it when it's less than or equal to 100? Okay, should it just be when it's less than 1000? Okay, that condition is always true the moment the game starts because the devil starts at axis 800. So here's what happens every frame. Devil.rect gets increased by x-axis underscore velocity. Devil.rect is still less than 1100. You immediately reset it. Wait, should it be greater than? What up guys, greater than or equal to 1000. Now for it controllers to save the code and run the command. Okay, so I get my first PNG here. Okay, it does actually work. It was a tiny typo. Okay, I can like move. Maybe I want it to come forwards. What up guys, let me fix that real quick. So, okay, I want him to go forwards. So let's say less than or equal to 1000, and then let me change his initial position to be something like, I don't know, maybe something like 0. Okay, that is x-axis. Now for it controllers to save the code and run the command. Let's see what happens. I get my first window popped up here. Okay, I can get my second. Why does he spawn here? I want him to like spawn here. Okay, so x-axis and y-axis. Okay, this is my x-axis. Apparently, he should have spawned a bit more to the left. What if I go with something like 1000? Now for the controllers to save the code, let's change this to something like greater than one more time. Okay, now if I run the code, let's see what happens. So I get my first window popped up right here and my second window there. I want him to go this way, not like backwards. To fix that, I know that I gotta like change my increase to be something like decrease. Okay, and then I'm gonna be checking if this is gonna be less than or equal to. Okay, and then let's change this position as well. So instead of 1000, this is gonna be 0. Now, maybe instead of 0, I'll go with something like 800. Now, if I hit controllers to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my first window pop up. And my second, why does he not move if I like don't like set that to be greater than or equal to? Because I want his position to be like right here. Huh. Why is he towards the left? I want him to be towards the right. Okay, maybe to do that I could like okay, that is, so what parameters did I need? That is x-axis, that is y-axis. Okay, so my y-axis is like correct. I gotta change my x-axis. What up guys, is it like by proportions or something? I think it's all correct honestly. Okay, let's change it to something like greater than again. Oh, his position is going to be set to -100. Let's change that to something like 800. Now for it controllers to save the code and run the command, I get my first window. There we go. Guys, that was like a pretty silly mistake. Okay, so now I can like change his position. Okay. What up guys, let me change that to something like less than again. Now for it controllers to save the code and run the command. I get my first window popped up here. And my second window, although he does not move this time, he only moves when it's set to greater than, not less than. So I guess let's change this to greater than. And now if his look like if my rec.x-axis is greater than or equal to, let's say something like 0, then I'm gonna do something. Okay, now let's just control us to save the code and run the command. My first window pops up. Okay, it's never greater than 0 or something. Alright guys, let me go ahead and exit my terminals real quick. So there we go. Okay, how is it always like never greater than 0 guys? Okay, to fix that, maybe I could go ahead and I don't know, like change. What do I even change here? I feel like everything looks pretty correct to me. For how long have you been learning this language? Honestly, I have been learning this for I think about 56 or like 57 days now. Maybe it's been 59 days. That's it. I feel like it is like in my caption. It's like the C++ for 100 series. That's it. Now if I were to run the command. Okay, so he does move, but he doesn't spawn back to whatchamacallit, my 800 here. Guys, I think it's just some of my math, because whatchamacallit, the upmost right side is gonna be something like my window size is 1000, so this should be 1000. Okay, if it's less than or equal to 0, okay, I think that should work, guys. If this doesn't work, I feel like it is like some kind of typo that I make. Did he go backwards? Okay, he is here. What up, guys? Let me actually change that. Go with Control C, Control Shift C. Okay, now if I hit Control S to save the code, I want to see what happens here real quick. Hold up, guys. Okay, he does not move. If I change this to be something like 1000, does he move? I'm pretty sure he moves when it's 1000. Okay, now if I run the code, okay, he does move when it's 1000. So let's go ahead and Control C to copy this. Let's get space/ChatGPT here. How can I learn this, and what is the language? Honestly, it is like C++. I am currently using SDL and C++. That's it. If you guys do like want a roadmap for this, you guys could like join the Discord server and then mention me that I could like send you guys the roadmap that I actually use. I meant what language and how to learn this. Okay, honestly, I do have like a lot of playlists as well on my channel. Actually, a playlist for my SDL where I did start learning SDL for the first time as well. So I was like a beginner. You guys could like see how I did that. That's it. Once your parents beat you if you stay up this late, guys. It's almost 2 p.m. here. That said, I'm gonna say something like, say, okay, let's go with something. Say, I feel like something is wrong with my loop ? Okay, I honestly think something is wrong with my loop. That's it. I see exactly what's happening, people. Look at this part. Devil.rect. Okay, you're subtracting x-axis velocity every frame, which means devil.rect is getting smaller. That's the leftwards movement. Okay. Okay, it resets to 0. Wait, guys, that actually does make sense. I'm not going towards the right anymore. I'm going towards the left. Okay, why do you talk with that infection? Honestly, guys, I feel like I'm not talking with that infection. That's it. If I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, so I get my first window popped up here. Okay, guys, there is some progress. The loop is actually working. Although I want it to be pushed forwards. Okay, he goes backwards. Let's change that to minus. Now he's going to be going forwards to the left. Okay, and then maybe I change 800 to be 0. If I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, so my NPC, or like my, my devil did like get past this window. Although, that's not what I was looking for though. Okay, let's read everything that Sensei has to say. Okay, I gotta keep the condition something like if my devilrect.x-axis plus my devilrect.width is less than or equal to 0 completely off screen. To the left by devil.rect equals to my windows' width. That actually is genius, but I feel like I should like hardcode a few numbers. Okay, that's it. Let me actually try that as well. So let's say if my devilrect, let's say something like plus my devilrect.width is either greater than or equal to 0. I'm going to do something. This is going to be equal to my width variable, my window size. Okay, let's see if this works. If I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. Okay, so I get my first monitor, my first terminal here. Okay, for my second terminal, I don't like see it anywhere. It is like just stuck in a place. Hold up, guys, maybe I do gotta hardcode a few numbers real quick. Okay, let's go with a bunch of Control Z's. Okay, if it's 1000, if I change that to be minus, it goes backwards. I wanted to go forwards. This does go forwards, but something is wrong with my loop. Let's think. That is 0 and this is like 1000. So if it is greater than or equal to 0, okay, then I'm going to change to 1000. This is the only stuff that actually makes sense, guys. Maybe let's try changing that to 800. If I did Control S to save the code and run the command, let's see what happens. I get my first window here. Why does it not move? Why does it not move? Does it have like a barrier, a wall type stuff here? Okay, what if I change that to less than or equal to 0? Would that work? Okay, something did work. It does move. Well, that does work apparently. Now let's change that to -100. Guys, that's all it took. It took some trial and errors. Let's change that to 1000. If audit control has to save the code again and run the command. Okay. There we go. It's a clean little smooth animation now of it actually looping. Alright guys, that felt like it took ages to figure out. But I feel that it's actually perfect now. That said, I'll go with something like Control-A, Control-C, copy that. Let's get some say/ChatGPT here. You're just guessing and checking. Honestly, I am like doing trial and error to like see what actually works, because like the PNG sizes are like different. That's it. I feel like I didn't understand how it worked right now. Okay, so I'm gonna go with something like, let's say, so, okay. What up guys, let's say something like, let's say it works, exclamation. Okay, dot. And honestly guys, I might actually end the stream right now, because like I've been like streaming for 2 hours. That's it. I do have like some college work to do as well. Okay, let me say something like, next year I might actually go over gravity. Let's say something like, that said, let's say something like, that said, I am actually planning to end the stream right now, because I do have some college stuff to do. Okay, that said, is there anything that you want to say to the viewers before I end the stream, question mark? Okay, let's see guys, I have like so many typos. That's it, listen up viewers, today you witness the power of SDL3 in action, moving PNG, scaling and automating NPCs like a pro. Remember, practice is what turns you from a noob into a master. Don't let your projects gather dust. Even a single line of code you write today takes you closer to your game dreams. And now people, okay, and people promises next time we're gonna stack multiple PNGs, make interactions and turn this into something epic. Stay hungry, stay coding. Okay, now go to college work, but don't forget the code one to write itself. Guess that is strong sensei help out for today's warriors guys. That did not make me blush. Okay, that said, let me go to my main camera. Alright guys, so basically that was pretty much it for the stream. That's it. I didn't want to stream for longer, although I did have like some college stuff to do. That said, if you guys did enjoy the stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, like helps my algorithm, sharing makes you smart, and subscribing is like it your top. And guys, I did start multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube, Trovo, and I will start multi-streaming on Instagram and TikTok as well if I did meet the followers and requirements. If you guys do enjoy my content and follow me there, make sure to follow me there. The link is going to be in the description, and also join the Discord server. The link will be in the description as well. That's it. I'll catch you guys in the next live stream or video. Peace. Alright guys, let me just see. I think I got a comment. Okay, maybe not.